Hello, brothers and sisters, we celebrate each one of you. Today's experience is entirely different from any message you may have heard about the rapture. In this account, what the brother saw is tied to ancient biblical prophecy and numbers shown to him from heaven's book, and many aren't aware. It is truly mind-blowing. Most importantly, it gives a clear answer to the much-debated question about the date of the rapture. He met Jesus in person and received a direct, clear response about the date and time. Kindly comment where you are watching from so we can connect with you personally. We would love to know your city or nation and keep you in prayer. When you share, it helps us see how God's family is spread across the world, and it reminds us that we are not walking this journey alone. Feel free to also drop a short word of encouragement or even a prayer request, because together we can lift one another up in faith, hope, and love. My name is Caleb Ryan Harper. I am 17 years old and I live in Montana, America. I grew up in a Christian home. I believed strongly in the rapture. I had studied messages about it, read articles online, and even kept notes in a small spiral notebook. For about a year and a half, I kept hearing people say September could be the time. Preachers, videos, even friends in youth groups spoke of dates, signs, and warnings. I listened, I prayed, and I waited like many others, holding hope that God would make it clear. On the morning I had this experience that's on the I was in the cattle pen behind our red wooden barn, where we kept 3 bulls. We raised them partly for shows at the county fair and partly for breeding. I had been up since 5 to feed and water them. My father had asked me to replace an old rope on the gate and check the rails because the wood had been worn from the long summer. I bent down to tie the new rope onto the post. One of the bulls, Titan, was behind me. He was restless, pawing at the dirt. I didn't see him move suddenly. One moment I was pulling the knot tight, and the next I felt the heavy force strike me from behind. His broad head and horn drove me forward, and my skull slammed against the wooden wall of the pen. In that moment everything went dark. When I woke in my vision, I was not lying on the ground anymore. I could still faintly hear the sound of birds and the swish of wind across the fields, but my chest felt light and strange. I remembered the hard hit against the wall, and then the sound of boots pounding fast on gravel. My father was running from the barn door, shouting my name. He dropped beside me, lifting my head like he had when I was younger and sick. He tried pressing on my chest and calling for help, but I could sense already that my breath wasn't there. I felt myself moving away, as if I was being pulled into another place where his cries were fading. As I drifted away from the ranch, it was strange how clear my thoughts became. I was not confused about where I was. I could see my body still in the pen, my father leaning over me, but at the same time I was lifted somewhere above, like the world was a picture and I was being shown both sides of it. As I moved deeper into the place where I had gone, the first thing that came into view was the sky, but not the sky I knew. It looked like a great map full of lights and slow-moving lines. Stars were not tiny dots now, they were markers that drew paths and shapes I could read like a page in a book. I watched as a pattern formed that reminded me of the stories I had read about signs in the heavens. I saw symbols that matched things I had studied, a woman with a crown of stars and a child, seasons and markets, and a clock that ticked in thousands of years rather than seconds. The clock looked long and stretched, and when I looked closer I remembered the idea I had read about, that history could be seen in days and thousands. It was not like a normal clock, it was a story clock. I could sense months and years passing by as if I watched a farmer's field change from green to brown in a single breath. Then I noticed a circle of years, like the rings of a tree. Each ring marked time, and one ring glowed brighter than the rest. It had a meaning I could feel without reading a single word: times of rest and times of work, a pattern of 7 and 50 and a place called Jubilee. The bright ring made me think of the Jubilee year I had read about in the Bible, a time when things were set right, debts were cleared, and people were given rest. The ring did not shout, it only shone as if to say this mattered. Around those rings there were smaller images, cities lighting up, crowds gathering, and fields that burned then grew again. I recognized some of these as the kinds of signs people speak about when they talk about the end times: storms, wars, and a sudden talk of peace that felt fragile. But seeing them spread across that sky map made them look like pieces of a puzzle rather than a single loud event. They fit together slowly, and their order mattered. The vision did not show a loud trumpet or a single flash. Instead, it showed a slow gathering, like clouds coming together before a storm, and also like a field being prepared before new seeds are planted. I was lifted upward into another place. Before me stretched what looked like a great plain, brighter than any field on earth, and in the middle of it stood a throne so vast it seemed to hold up the very heavens. I could not see the face of the one who sat on it, but I knew this was the seat of final judgment. As I gazed, two groups of people appeared before the throne. The first group shone with light, their faces calm and full of joy. They were clothed in garments that seemed woven from purity itself. I understood they had taken part in the first resurrection, the rising of those who belonged to Christ. These were the faithful, those who had endured trials, those who had washed their lives in the blood of the Lamb. They stood not in fear but in expectation, as children returning home. Then I saw the second group. Their faces were shadowed, and their bodies seemed weighed down as though chains hung from them. They looked lost, with eyes full of sorrow and regret. Jesus let me know these were the unsaved, those who had rejected his offer of life. This was the second resurrection, and for them, it led to judgment. Their names were searched for in the book of life, but when they were not found, they turned toward eternal separation from God. He revealed that those in the first resurrection had trusted his righteousness, not their own. Those in the second had chosen to stand on their own strength, and it was not enough. He let me know that his mercy had been offered to all, but not all had accepted it. After the vision of the two resurrections, I was drawn closer to the throne. My whole being trembled, for this was not like anything I had seen before. One by one, people were called to stand before the throne. They came from every place and every age, from kings to beggars, from children to the aged. Each life was laid bare, and every secret was spoken aloud. Some trembled as their deeds were revealed, others fell to their knees in sorrow, and a few lifted their heads in peace, their names shining from the book of life. Those whose names were written in the book were welcomed into everlasting joy, but those who were not found there turned toward a place of unending separation. I could not look long at what awaited them, for it was too heavy for my heart to bear. Jesus let me feel the seriousness of this moment. He showed me that no excuse, no hidden act, no forgotten word was overlooked. Every life was measured by truth. Yet he also reminded me that mercy had been offered freely through him, and those who accepted it had nothing to fear. I found myself standing before something that looked like a library but far larger than anything on earth. The shelves did not end, they stretched upward and sideways into a brightness I could not measure. I was not walking on wood or stone but on a floor that. In the middle stood a single book placed on a pedestal. The book was wider than my chest and thick like the family Bible my mother kept on our living room table, but this one gave off a steady light. When I moved closer, the book opened by itself. Its pages turned like leaves touched by a breeze, though there was no wind. On those pages, I saw history written like a story. Some chapters were already complete, and others were still turning. Each page held a span of years, not just names and dates but the spirit of what happened. Wars, nations rising and falling, seasons of peace, and the cries of people who prayed. All of it was written there. My eyes fell on a section that glowed brighter than the rest. It showed the 6,000 years of human struggle I had studied, like 6 long days of labor, each filled with sorrow and triumph. Then came the 7th day, which was marked as rest, the 1,000 years promised as the reign of Christ. It was laid out clearly, not with confusing numbers. Then the pages shifted again. I saw cycles of 50, jubilee after jubilee, marking times when God reset and restored. One jubilee glowed above all, and I understood without words that it pointed to the final jubilee year, a moment of permanent reset. My heart leapt because I remembered my own studies where I had underlined verses about restoration and freedom. Here, it was alive, no longer just words on paper but living truth. The book then revealed something else, a line of days, 2,550 of them, strung like beads on a string. They began with a sign in the heavens years ago, one I had once read about in connection to the woman and the child in the stars. The days stretched forward to a solemn moment, a day of atonement in the future. I sensed it was not just a human calendar but God's design. As I stood there, I felt the presence of someone near me. I did not need to see him to know it was Jesus. His nearness was like warmth pressing into every part of me. He let me know that this book was not about fear but about promise. He revealed to me that the pages showed how God's plan had always been sure, and that every prophecy would fall into place as faithfully as seasons follow each other. As I stood before the open book, the pages folded together until they pointed to one season, the month of September. My chest tightened, because that was the very month I had heard about again and again for more than a year. The book showed me September like a door in the timeline. Around it were shadows of voices, people talking, preachers warning, videos being shared, and believers whispering about the rapture. I could almost hear the words that had circled my own life. September is the month. Some said one date, some another. Jesus, though I still could not see his face, let me know this truth. It was not about the guessing of exact days but about the season itself. He revealed to me that September had been marked in heaven as a signpost, a reminder for this generation to stay awake. He let me understand that the focus was not to argue over dates but to prepare the heart. It was like farmers watching the sky for rain. They cannot choose the exact hour the clouds will break, but they know when the season of rain has come. Then the page of September shifted and opened wider, and I saw two images. The first was of a great celebration, like a trumpet festival, where people lifted their eyes with joy. The second was of sudden darkness falling on others who were unprepared. These two images ran side by side, not fighting each other but showing that the same moment could mean deliverance for one and destruction for another. As the vision deepened, I understood that September 23rd, the date that many had argued about, was not shown to me as a calendar number to boast of. Instead, it appeared in the book as a marker, a point of turning where heaven's clock and earth's events touched. Jesus let me know that the book was showing me this not to satisfy curiosity but to stir faith. It was a warning wrapped in mercy. I felt tears rise in me, though I did not know if a spirit could cry. I thought of my father still holding me in the pen, my mother who would soon hear the news, and my friends at church who had laughed and wondered about all the talk of prophecy. I wanted to tell them that the season was real, that the signs were not empty. I wanted them to know that while no one could demand the day, we were already standing at the edge of it. When the visions ended, I felt myself return, and it's at this moment I found myself in the hospital. I felt a deep urge to speak, to warn, to call out to those who still think they have plenty of time. The truth is, no one knows when their last breath will come. What matters most is not the house we build, the money we gather, or the praise of people. What matters is the state of our soul and whether our name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. My heart pleads with every believer, take your walk with God seriously. Do not treat prayer as a burden or the Bible as an old book. These are your lifelines. Pray daily, speak to God as your Father, and let His word shape your steps. Love one another with sincerity, for love is the mark of those who belong to Christ. Do not hold grudges, do not walk in hatred, and do not allow sin to rest in secret corners of your heart. For those who have not yet chosen Christ, the time is now. Do not wait for another day, for another chance, or for a sign in the sky. The greatest sign has already been given. Jesus laid down His life and rose again so that we might live. His mercy is still open today, but one day the door will close. Be watchful. Be faithful. Do not be found sleeping when the trumpet sounds. I know what I saw, and I know it was real. And because of that, I cannot stay silent. My prayer is that when the day comes and we all stand before that throne, you and I will be among those whose names shine brightly in the book of life, ready to enter the joy of our Lord forever.